Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview with me, Andrew Musgrove and John Gibbs. And Newcastle head down to Stamford Bridge on Sunday afternoon to face Chelsea in what would be hopefully a victory for Newcastle United. John, welcome back to the podcast. How are you keeping? Are you well?
I'm well. I'm a little bit worried about my team, but I'm okay. I hope that the team recover very, very quickly.
I don't know what's happened to me in the last few days, John. I know I've been ill. Everyone knows about it. I'm not going to go on about it, but I am not really sensing this negativity that is swirling around for some people. I'm feeling quite confident and optimistic, not necessarily about Sunday in isolation, but about what's going to come in the next few weeks and months. Because what I see is Newcastle United creating chances and missing them. And I think that's a better position to be in than sitting here saying, we've got Chelsea on Sunday and they cannot create a single thing in Newcastle United. So I'm looking optimistically at Sunday, 3 points, and then hopefully progression in the cup and then a victory over Arsenal as well.
Well, I mean, have you got a temperature, mate? I know you haven't been feeling too well. I think you might be suffering from a high temperature. Uh, I wish I could feel as enthusiastic as you. I haven't abandoned all hope. I haven't become a yo-yo up and down, up and down. But having said that, I've always been a realist. And what I'm seeing at the moment is not particularly pleasing me. It is pleasing me that in build up, we look superb. Let's be truthful, in build up, we were as good against Brighton as we've been all season. But as I used to say to my manager when I owned Gateshead, because manager speak is always, well, we played great, German. We played great. We're just unlucky. We just didn't convert a few chances. And I would say, but I'd just like to say that missing chances is bad play. The same as it's bad play not to dominate the middle of the park or to be sloppy defensively. Missing chances is bad play. And at the moment, that's what we're about. In the last, we can't score. I mean, the number of chances we had to put Brighton to bed. Brighton didn't come up here and do a job on us. We did a job on ourselves. We missed absolute clear-cut chances. And in the last 4 matches we've played, which includes a League Cup tie, which is 6 hours of football, we've scored 2 goals and both have been penalties. We've not scored from open play. And we've snatched at chances from open play. And our blue chip players, Isaac and Gordon missed one-on-ones with the keepers on Saturday that normally you would never expect us to miss. I am concerned because facts are facts, Andrew. We've got 2 points out the last 12, and we've got Chelsea away and Arsenal to come. Just talking of the league for the moment.
But the very fact, like you say, you usually one-on-one with the goalkeeper, that ends up in the back of the net. Do you not just put it down to just being maybe one of those days? Okay, you throw Everton into the scenario as well, so it's one of those 2 games in a row this has happened. But do you not feel just a slight bit of optimism that on any other day they get 3 points at Goodison, they get 3 points against Brighton? Players just have off days, and sometimes keepers just make great saves.
Yes, but this isn't just an off day. In the last 4 games, we haven't scored from open play. We've scored 2 penalties. In the last 4 games, we've got 2 points out of 12 with Chelsea and Arsenal to come. That's what I was banging on about, Andrew, on this podcast prior. Everybody suddenly starts panicking now and says 2 huge games to go. Is it only going to be 2 points out of, I don't know, 18 at the end of these 2 games? The time I panicked was when we were playing Everton and Everton away and Brighton at home, because if we didn't get 2 wins, we went into these 2 difficult games under the cosh. And that's when we blew it, and we blew it in both those games. And it's absolutely no consolation to me that we dominated playing both those games, because the table doesn't reflect that. You don't get anything for looking pretty. You get something for putting the ball in the net. And I'm not being too dispirited, but I am being realistic. We are paying the price now for not addressing in the last 3 transfer windows outside right and centre forward, and I include centre forward. because we've just relied blindly on Callum Wilson. Usula, bless him, may be the answer to all our prayers in 2 seasons' time, but obviously Eddie Howe doesn't seem as the answer to Eddie's prayers now, because he didn't put him on at all against Everton when we were desperate for a goal, and he put him on when the board was up for the injury time minutes on Saturday when we were desperate for a goal. So we haven't got centre forward sorted out, and we've never had outside right sorted out. I mean, since we signed Miggy, we haven't done anything about outside right, apart from Minter, who was in and out like a fiddler's elbow. So, that position, I mean, how many times have we got to have proof that we're getting done for our policy in the transfer market? Our policy in the transfer market following takeover and following Eddie's arrival was totally magnificent. When you think of Trippier and Bruno and Botman and Isak right up to Gordon, terrific. It has not been terrific in the last 3 windows. And also, what startles me is we spend all summer haggling over 70 million for a centre half. What happened to an outside right of a centre forward outside of Asula, a centre forward for today, not for tomorrow? We keep buying for tomorrow. We bought the 2 fullbacks for tomorrow a year ago. We got Hall on loan for a season, but we were committed to buying them. And they look 2 good boys, don't get me wrong, but today needs taken care of. The side that qualified for the Champions League, not the one last season, that qualified for the Champions League, we aren't stronger now, and a few of the players are 2 years older.
Yeah, I think my maybe blind faith in the summer when they didn't do the business we thought they would do was probably a little bit misplaced, because now I do look at the squad, I look at the teams around, and you do question whether Newcastle United have got enough to mount a top 6 challenge, let alone a top 4 challenge. But that being said, we wanted the performances to improve because they were so poor at the start of the season, and I don't think anyone can argue that the performances have not improved, because I think they have done, and they are playing well. That 35 minutes against Brighton was arguably the best half an hour that we've seen Newcastle play in recent months. And that's why I'm optimistic, John, because I just think it's such fine margins. And on any other day, Newcastle United take 2 of those chances, and we're sitting here talking about Newcastle with 15 points and up to 5th or 6th. So I'm not pressing the panic button. I'm just trying to find a bit of optimism and positivity going into what will be.
I follow you totally, mate. I follow you totally. But what it's based on, apart from blind optimism, I'm not certain, because
it's just based on it's based on the chances they're creating. And like I said, I'd much rather be in this position where they're missing chances rather than them not having chances to miss. Because I think if you're going into Chelsea ×2 and then Arsenal, and you're looking around and thinking, like, they've literally had 1 shot on target over the last 4 or 5 games, or what have you, I'd be a lot more worried. But actually, we're going to this game saying, well, a sharp and fit Isak would have 2 there. Gordon shouldn't have taken the penalty. Someone else should have taken it against Everton and they would have scored. Gordon probably should have 2 in the last 2. I just think the luck's a little bit out, and I go back to being real fine margins. And that's what I'm clinging to why maybe the next week isn't as daunting as it seems.
I've got to bring us back to realism here, because we're in great danger of living on Fantasy Island, where that, remember that program on telly? It wasn't just on any other day we would have beaten Brighton, and on any other day we would have beaten Everton. On any other day has gone to the last 4 matches now. It's 4 matches since we scored a goal in open play. So we're not missing them today, but we'll score them tomorrow. We're missing them yesterday and we're missing them today. And that's what concerns me. I'm not getting too depressed, because it is very, very early in the season. But I'm getting realistic because I want Newcastle United to get realistic. January is coming up. We've got to hang on to January and then hope we do something about this. What we can't get away from, Andrew, is it's 2 points out the last 12, and how many are we going to get out the 6 that's in front of us now? which is Chelsea away and Arsenal at home. We complained that 7th last season was a bad return and it missed out on Europe. We're currently 9th in Nottingham Forest are above us. Now, wait a minute. This is the club that when it was taken over, we were told by Amanda, bless her, that we were going to win the Premier League and the Champions League, albeit eventually, of course, we're not that stupid. But, tell us we're not going backwards. The season before last, we're 4th. Last season, we're 7th. We're currently 9th. Where will we be after we play Chelsea and Arsenal? Hopefully, with 6 more points, we'll be back up where we like to be. But what if we're not? We are at the moment, we're 9th. And Nottingham Forest are above us. With two tough games to play. We haven't scored goals for 4 games from open play. And, is it asking too much? I look at the start of the season and we were getting results, but saying, but the performance isn't good. We want the performances to be good. Now, the performances are good, but we're not getting results. What happened to a couple of years ago when the performances were good and we did get results? What happened to that? I mean, has it got to be one or the other? And if it has, which one do we want? I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other, Andrew. I mean, Aston Villa were way behind us in the pecking order. They're way ahead of us now. They're 4th. They're 5 points better off than us. And of course, we comforted ourselves last season and said, we suffered last season when we finished 4th and we got in the Champions League because the extra workload, etc., etc. It's tough. You can't do it, and that was the reason we went to 7th. Aston Villa, who's come up behind us, and with all the restrictions we have, financial fair play, etc., they're 4th. They're 5 points ahead of us. They've played 3 Champions League games and won 3 Champions League games, including beating Bayern Munich, which is their equivalent of us beating Paris Saint-Germain, which was fabulous for us, but that was a one-off for us. They've won 3 out of 3. Why aren't we Aston Villa? I mean, nobody can tell me that we haven't taken 2 steps backwards. Now the rod for our back, or the rod for Eddie's back, that he got from nowhere to 4th and raised the bar so high and raised expectations so high. But don't tell me we haven't fallen behind Aston Villa, because we have. And I guess I wouldn't be frustrated. I would just say this is part of football's education, etc., etc., if it was genuinely that. But I think we've lost our way in the transfer market. I think we've been so cautious, we make Gareth Southgate look like if a guy that blows everything to the wind and just we've been very, very cautious in the transfer market. The last 3 transfer markets haven't been magnificent before that. And have we also got our targets right? Like I'm talking about looking at a centre, spending all the season, all the summer looking at a centre half, deliberating about whether to pay 70 million, in an outside right and a centre forward screaming from the heavens that we need to do something about it. Will we do something about it in January? I certainly hope so. I mean, with the outside right situation, I mean, since Miggy come, we've never addressed that situation. And that was yonks ago. That was well before the takeover, etc. It is a problem. And we're doing all sorts of things to get around it. And none of them really are the answer. We play Miggy. Well, we don't actually. We put him on for a couple of minutes now. But we play Jacob Murphy. Great player on the bench, not a great player to start with. We switch Gordon across out of his comfort zone because he's an outside left, and in England outside left. We've got Harvey Barnes. We don't know what to do with him. We're lopsided. You look down that right-hand side. I look down the right-hand side because we haven't got Trips here now, and we've got Livramento and Murphy. Is that, at this given moment, Livramento is going to be a good player, but is that a top 4 Champions League right side?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will share your questions that you're asking, John, and I do think for as long as Aston Villa do well this season, both domestically and on the European stage, I do think I do think automatically there's comparisons to what happened last season with Newcastle United, and it doesn't paint a good picture from a Newcastle United point of view. But Villa are absolutely flying, and Unai Emery is just what an absolute top class manager. He's doing a fantastic
By
job
the
there.
way, yeah, isn't that a frustration as well? I'm not suggesting for 1 minute I wish we had Emery instead of Howe, because I think they're both terrific. But isn't that just rubbing it in our noses because that's the guy we were supposed to get and didn't because he turned us down? Then he goes to Villa, and then Villa are doing this. And they were a sleeping giant like us. They hadn't slept as long as us because they won a European trophy since we won ours, etc., etc. But they were a historically huge club like we are that was going nowhere fast, but they're now going somewhere fast. And so are we to start with. All I'm saying is we've lost our way a little bit and they haven't. And you know why they haven't, Andrew? Because let's have the comparisons. Let's be truthful. You know why they haven't? Because they've been very clever in the transfer market while we haven't. Not only have they bought well, but they've sold well. They've sold big players like Louise. They've sold people for 50 million. In the summer, they make the Champions League, and they sell arguably their best player, Louise, for 50 million to Italy, and improve the side. But that gives them a huge amount of wiggle room. And so where they've been clever is selling, and we have been awful at selling. I mean, we seem to think that if a guy's nice and he's lovely round the dressing room, he should be here until he's picking up his pension. I mean, sometimes you've got to sell people one step backwards to make two forward. Villa did that in the summer. We haven't done that.
Yeah, lessons potentially there to be learned when you do look at how Aston Villa have handled their transfer business. We mentioned there the performances at the start of the season and how we wanted them to improve, and they have done, but now they're not picking up points. I mean, the amount of chances they created against Everton and Brighton, John, you see your concern, but what is the remedy? What's the solution? Because I look at it and think Eddie Howe has done his job during the week. He's coached his side into a position where they are having, I don't know, 21 shots on goal, and you expect at least 2 of them, 3 of them to go in the back of the net. So he can't do any more. What's the solution? How do these shots and efforts on goal become goals?
Well, that is the problem. And of course, one of the real answer to that problem, Andrew, is not in Eddie Howe's hands because it can't come till January. The real answer to that is we shouldn't have left ourselves short of a centre forward and short of an outside right. That's 2 positions out of the front 3, mate. Were badly covered. 2 out of 3. Now that's major. And by the way, anybody could see it. No, we're not a genius, or we're not talking with hindsight. We've been banging on about an outside right and a centre forward cover for Isaac because of Wilson's injuries for at least 2 years. I mean, it's not being clever with hindsight. It's just it's now coming home to roost. I mean, I don't blame Eddie for anything, and I think Eddie, in terms of what he can do with the current squad during the week, etc., and what a magnificent job he's done for Newcastle United. But what concerns me, there's only one part of Eddie that concerns me, and that's his loyalty. Is he too loyal? I've just talked about Aston Villa being absolutely progressive in the transfer market, selling a couple. Derby that went off to Saudi was another that was sold in the 46, 50 million pound range as well, which give them huge wiggle room. If anybody is talked about going, Eddie, bless him, talks about not wanting them to go. I mean, he wanted to give new contracts to Richie and Dummett. He said on record that he didn't want Almiron to go. He said on record he wants Wilson to stay. Well, who the heck's going to go, Andrew? Because somebody's got to. Somebody has got to go. And it's no good getting rid of Gillespie, your 5th goalkeeper. He's going to make you a fortune, isn't he? Yeah, you've got to be. I mean, Emery and Villa got rid of 2 of their best players for the thick end of 100 million in the summer, having just qualified for the Champions League, and they spent that then. in the transfer market and overall improved their squad. When's the last time we've sold well? Take out the two sellings that we did in the blind panic on June the 30th, and the last time we sold anybody in the current reign was when we sold Maxi to Saudi, and that's all we've done.
Yeah, it's not been good in terms of exits, and it does feel like it's leading up to maybe a big name having to go. It won't be Anthony Gordon because he's just signed a new deal, which is thoroughly deserved. Don't think it'll be Alexander Isak because he's next, I think, on the contract talks, and it'll not be too long till we see him with a deserved new deal. But could it be Bruno perhaps if someone comes in with 85, 90 million pounds? They're the kind of tough decisions that are going to have to be made. No one at Villa would have wanted to lose Louise, but they understood they had to
Absolutely not.
because of the accounts, and then they were clever spending the money. So, and that's worked really well. And you go further back, Liverpool selling Coutinho, etc., to Barcelona. These decisions will have to be made, and they're not going to please everybody. But long as the money's reinvested and spent wisely, that's what matters. I mean, you look at the likes of Joe Willock, perhaps, is he one that they could try and cash in on in January? Whether they'd make any profit is another question. But it does feel like at some point, either in January or the summer, Eddie Howe and the fan base are going to have to face the reality that maybe one player that they really don't want to have to lose and can't afford to lose in terms of ability and importance to the team may have to go to make sure the team progresses over the following 2 or 3 windows.
I mean, the sadness is, in lots of ways, that we've run down the clock on people like Wilson and Trippier, who might, if in the past produced a right few quid. Trippier because of in England international during the Euros, and Wilson simply because he's a centre forward who scores goals when he's fit. And somebody always takes a gamble on a centre forward who scores goals on his fitness. I mean, but his contract's up at the end of the season. It's too late to make any sort of decent money on trips. We've let situations where we could sell. Almiron is another one. Hanging on too long to Almiron, his transfer fee has gone slowly down, and down. We didn't sell at the optimum moment, but I mean they weren't a huge sacrifice like Louise was to Aston Villa or like Bruno would be to Newcastle if he was sold now. But if they had gone, we would have got a decent amount of money for them. We'll now get peanuts for them. For Wilson, we'll get nothing. Unless he went in January, and why should he from his point of view? Because he's a free transfer at the end of the season. And how much are we going to get for trips? 34 now. And Almiron's gone from about 25 million to 15 million. We haven't been quick. We haven't been clever in the transfer market. And now we're faced with, it's going to have to be a top player sacrifice. But then again, Aston Villa did that and have prospered so far this season.
Yeah, I think with some of those players, I also think the club just have to accept kind of what offer they get on the table. If someone offers you 12 million for Miguel Almiron, maybe you just go, fair enough, we'll cash in and accept it, because who's going to pay
Absolutely
20 million for him at this point? His contract runs till 2026, but that's all good and well. But you can only really ask for 20, 25 million if he's banging in the goals on the pitch, which he's not doing, is he? And I think there's other players in that squad as well, where maybe the asking price might have to come down a little bit, and you just get what you can for him. If you want to have a bit more of a discussion about the January transfer window and the summer after that as well, myself and Simon Bird have done a podcast which went out on Wednesday, both on YouTube and our audio channel, where Simon talks about £100 million revamp in January, and we run through the list of potential exits as well. Well worth a watch. And just want to say thank you as well to our sponsor, NORD VPN. The very best protection for all your devices, protects you from scammers when using public Wi-Fi. You can also switch your virtual location, allowing you to save money by purchasing flights, hotel subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price. We've got a very exclusive deal for you guys who are watching and listening. Go to nordvpn.com/tune for this discounted offer. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with NORD's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast description box. Past few days before I've made it into the office, I've been working at my local Starbucks, getting a bit of a coffee, John, mixing it up a little bit, laptop on the table, doing a little bit of work. And it's just nice to have this added protection in the background, working away, keeping me safe from whoever might be out there lurking in the shadows, wanting my financial details or what have you. So it's nice to have this peace of mind. And I really do recommend that you guys go and get your exclusive offer and help support the podcast as well. Once again, thank you to NORD VPN for the support and the sponsorship. It's much appreciated. Shall we talk about Chelsea, John? Because we haven't spoken about them in 25 minutes of this episode, and I feel like we probably should do. In the summer, we were all laughing at them and thinking, look at you, you've bought another 12,000 players, and I don't know how your dressing room's big enough, and you've got a manager who's, being good in the championship, but is he really going to be able to lay down the law in this Chelsea side? And fair play to Enzo Maresca, he's done a very good job, and they are looking like a bit of a team and not to be laughed at. I think he actually said earlier in the week they're no longer a laughing stock. We go down to Stamford Bridge. They've started the season well. They are 6th, 14 points, which I think is above where anyone really probably expected them to be. But at home, John, they've only won once in the 4 games they've had at home this season. They've drawn 2, lost 1, and they are vulnerable at the back. And with Newcastle creating chances, and I know you've had your point on what I've had to say about creating chances, but this is another reason I'm feeling quite optimistic, because they're really quite vulnerable at the back. They've got a very young centre-back pairing, Fofana and Colwell, 2 brilliant players, and as they get older and more experienced, especially Colwell, I think will be one of the best centre-backs in recent times in the Premier League, and Fofana, no doubt, will be up there as well. But right now, they are able to be got at, and they don't look totally comfortable in this partnership. They don't look totally right. And I think Newcastle will create chances. They won't create as many chances as they did against Brighton, but I still expect them to get in there. And I think there'll be goals in this for Newcastle on Sunday. And I think they'll take advantage of that vulnerability at the back. And fingers crossed, Isaac, Gordon, whoever can get on the score sheet. But definitely the centre-back pairing is where they need to try and exploit on Sunday.
Yeah, you've always got to travel with hope, and you're right to have hope, because otherwise it's pretty pointless taking part. If you have no hope, you must have hope, and you're right to give you a chance at the back. But I thought before the game last weekend that Brighton were a team that give you a chance at the back. I always thought Dunk was quite one-paced and was vulnerable to a situation. They played a high line, they want to play out from the back and take tremendous risk. This is Brighton in playing out from the back. And sure enough, they did exactly that. And how many goals did we score? None. But we should have been 4 by half-time. I mean,
that's the point, though, isn't it? That's the point.
No, it isn't the point. No, it's not the point, because we didn't get one of them. And as I used to say to my managers at Gateshead, hey, listen, not scoring when you've had a barrel load of chances is as bad play as messing the ball up in midfield and being sloppy in your defensive work at the back, marking up. If you miss chances, that is bad play. It is not a good thing. I agree that you can have a one-off day in the old cliche. It's the old manager speak, isn't it? Oh, if we create chances on another day, we'll score a barrel load. And that often is the case. But in the last 4 games with Newcastle, it hasn't been the case. We had a barrel load of chances at Everton. How many did we score? We had a barrel load of chances against Brighton. How many did we score? We could have a barrel load of chances at Chelsea. How many will we score? We've got to start scoring goals. It's absolutely ludicrous, isn't it? What happens with Newcastle United? 2 years ago, when we qualified for the Champions League, we had the best defensive record in the top flight, along with Man City, I think. We let in under 20 goals in the whole season. Absolutely brilliant. Last season, the defence was hopeless. We let in a barrel load of goals, but we scored 80. This season, we're gone at a barn door from 3 paces in the last few games. So the swings and roundabouts have been phenomenal. I'm looking I'm looking at our front three for the next two matches. Three, if we include the League Cup tie at home to Chelsea, and say where the goal's going to come from. Normally, I would say he's at 25 last season. This season, one, a tap in against Spurs. I'm looking at Anthony Gordon, superb player. Off glad he's signed. Off creates a load of chances. Snatches like a winger does at most of the chances, but still made double figures for the first time in his life last season. Will he do it again this season? And who's going to score from outside right? We can't even pick an outside right that justifies starting. So I'm worried about where the goals are going to come from. Yes, Chelsea give you a real chance at the back, but that's because also they attack you. And so they can leave themselves vulnerable on the counter. I mean, they're fielding the youngest team in the Premier League. I think the side they put out, and we know they've got to go to Panathinaikos on Thursday night before they play us. And you haven't mentioned yet in your optimism, but you will no doubt that that's to our advantage because they should come home tired from Athens on a Thursday, and we've had a free week. That's worth a mention. I expected that from you before now, my old son, but it didn't come. But and yes, we can stick the youngest team in the Premier League, and as Alan Hansen famously said, you win now with Baines, although he didn't say it in a Geordie accent like that. And we have to hope that they can win this match, never mind a silver trophy. But they aren't the joke they were, and the manager has done a terrific job, and they have got their wide players are terrific. And Cole Palmer is Cole Palmer, and Jackson, who epitomised being the joke, who just slashed the chances, had as much chance of hitting the corner flag as the back of the net, is now beginning to get a few. It will be a tough test. Nothing's impossible. I'm going to throw one at you, question, because this intrigues me. If you could only win one match against Chelsea, would it be Saturday or would it be the League Cup up here? In which game gives us the best chance?
It would be the League Cup. I think the League Cup is something that Newcastle need to target. Let's get the monkey off our back. Let's get that first cup lifted. Yeah, it would be the League Cup, most certainly. I want to see progression. I want to see them go all the way, without a shadow of a doubt. It's difficult because the question on from that, John, is, what's more important, top four football or lifting a trophy? But as I've alluded to, my confidence about this squad being able to sneak into the top four is maybe been a little bit misplaced. And so maybe the answer to that is, well, actually, they're not going to get top four. The best they can hope for is Europa League or Europa Conference, win the League Cup. There's your place in Europe, job done. So yeah, for me, a win on Wednesday is more important than a win on Sunday. But I'm hoping that they can win both games. And I think they can get goals down at Chelsea. I really do. And I'm hoping, the chances that we saw against Brighton can be put into the back of the net against Chelsea. I think Gordon needs a run of consistent games on the left because that's where he's best at. And once he gets that, I think we'll start to see the Gordon of last season. Isak, the situation is absolutely dire. There's no way we should be even talking about him, I don't think, starting on Sunday. But Eddie Howe's got no options. He has to start his main man because he hasn't got Callum Wilson, who should be starting there instead of him. Horrible situation. But as he gets more minutes under his belt, I think we'll start to see him also scoring in the back of the net. And yeah, you've mentioned the right wing, but we can go over old ground, and we probably will do until January the 1st, and then come February the 1st, say exactly the same thing when they haven't signed anyone. So let's not waste that time now. Tosin actually started at centre back for Chelsea against Liverpool, not for Fofana, on Sunday. So maybe it shows they haven't quite got their number one pairing with Corwell. But Robert Sanchez, the goalkeeper,
No, he does give you a chance. He does give you a chance.
Chelsea fans with a lot of confidence. He got away with a penalty on Sunday against Liverpool when he rushed out and wiped out, I think it was Curtis Jones, and then the referee gave a penalty, and then he got overruled by VAR. But as a whole, it just looks a little bit shaky. Chelsea's still struggling to really find that top goalkeeper. And again, with the high press, if they can just find that intensity, get on his toes, there could be a weak link there to exploit. There is a weak link, and they should be exploiting it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The goalkeeper does give you a real chance. Um, he's possibly the problem they've got. They may look to solve it against Panathinaikos and then have a choice of whether Sanchez plays on Sunday or doesn't play. It gives you a real choice, a real chance. And of course, we've got a chance against Chelsea because they can be thwarted, they can be muffled. Um, there's no question about that. The home form hasn't been terrific. Um, but on a good day, they're a good side now. I mean, they've just played Liverpool and were arguably the better side. Again, it was a bit like us. They were the better side, but lost. We were the better side against Brighton, but lost. So they are a decent side. They've defied all the Bob jokes and everything, and the manager has come out terrific. I'm not making them out to be beyond what they are. They're a decent side. I think we've got more, even though they've got a bad home record, I think we've got more chance on Wednesday night than we'll possibly have on Sunday afternoon. Um, uh, but the interesting thing is, what team does Eddie do? Does he play his loyalty card, which he does 9 times out of 10, and reveal virtually the same team because they're his best side? Or does he shake the pack up because this side looks stale? Let's be truthful. This side looks stale at the moment. It looks as if it needs an injection of vavavoom. It needs something that's going to give them a lift. I'm not certain that there's a lot at Eddie's disposal that can do that for him because you haven't got somebody coming back from an injury that'll give you a lift. I mean, that's what Isaac was supposed to do against Brighton, give us that lift when he was available to play. I'm not certain what he can do to produce that vavavoom. I'm hoping. I think that Anthony Gordon has looked in the last couple of games when Newcastle have been better, apart from his missed penalty at Everton and his missed chance 1-on-1 against Brighton, doing what he's in the majority supposed to do, which is create and tear the right back to pieces. He looks a good player. He looks as if he's got his appetite back, which wasn't there at the beginning of the season when obviously Liverpool affected him, etc. He's got that out his system. He's got a new contract. He's absolutely committed. Well done, the lad. He has great hope for us. I've often wanted to play him outside right just to get Barnes in the side. But I want him to play whoever plays outside right, I want him to play outside left. Because A, he's at his best in that position, and B, he deserves to play in his proper position. He's committed himself to us. He's England's outside left, etc., etc. So we've got to play him there, I'm afraid, and then look at the other position and just make the best of it until January. And it's very difficult to make the best of it until January, Andrew, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think, without a shadow of a doubt, Gordon's probably the first name on the team sheet for me at left wing. And I think Eddie Howe will play an unchanged side to the one that played against Brighton, namely because, as you say, he hasn't really got anything to mix it up with in the first place. He's not going to make a formation change. I wouldn't be against them having a kind of a 4-2-3-1 formation with two centre midfielders, one told, you're gonna sit back and be that kind of defensive element. So probably a Tonali and then I mean, Joe Linton had a decent game against Brighton, but is the midfield three really clicking? I mean, it's irrelevant because he's not going to change it, but I
Well,
do wonder if
I
maybe.
don't know. I don't know. We never know. We never know. We're catching little bits of confetti that's blowing in the breeze, but I think he will give consideration without necessarily do it. He'll give consideration to bring back his old friend Sean Longstaff because
Hmm.
of what he can give to the side, up and back, put his foot in, work with. I mean, we've got three thoroughbreds in midfield, but do they complement each other at the moment? Do the two Brazilians and Tonali, who are a country mile on ability ahead of most, but is it actually working? And for an away game, I think he'll be tempted. I won't say that he'll do it because he might resist the temptation, but I bet it off comes into his thoughts because he likes Sean Longstaff that he could play Sean Longstaff.
As a midfield three, though, or will he change it up and put two?
Well, if you go with two with defensive responsibilities, although you haven't got a six anyway, he could be one of those Longstaff with Bruno or whatever. Or the trouble is that if it's a three and you've got to drop either Bruno, Tonali, or Joe Linton, the problem is Bruno's your captain. Tonali's your £55 million investment, and Joe Linton's your big beast. Though I'm not certain the three go together. So somebody might say, well, move Joe Linton forward. Unfortunately, if you move Joe Linton forward, he's an outside left more than he's an outside right. But could you play him outside right?
But then you're sacrificing Gordon. It's it's
no
not an easy.
outside right. Could he play outside right?
Oh, on the right side, I see what I mean. Yeah, that would have to be what it would be. I mean, I don't really think that
No,
would
he
suit
wouldn't.
him.
He wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. Ironically, we've got so many outside lefts. When you look at Gordon, Harvey Barnes, and Joe Linton, who's played quite regularly there in Germany and for us, we've got so many outside lefts and no outside rights.
Funny, isn't it? Well, it's not funny, but if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
No,
I do worry about Chelsea's front three and specifically Palmer going up against the back four. I mean, if Fabian Schär is as standoffish as he has been in recent games, then Palmer's going to have an absolute field day. You know, he's just got such talent. The ball sticks to him. He always wants to go forward, but he can go back making the right decisions. He's such a good player. I mean, 21 million or whatever he costs for Man City looks like an absolute bargain now. And I do worry the pace he's got up against Dan Burn, up against Fabian Schär, as good as Dan Burn's been, it does keep me awake a little bit. I did say I was worried about Danny Welbeck last weekend, and sadly I was proved right. But that was, again, you look at the goal he scored. I mean, Fabian Schär needed to be tighter. Livramento needed to be stronger. Dan Burn just needed to be in position. It was a very poor goal to concede. But, you know, if you do that again with Palmer breathing down your neck, Sancho on the other flank, and Jackson up front, you're going to be vulnerable.
Outside right's a bit tasty as well.
Oh, yes, Majuki, yeah. So, you're going to be vulnerable.
The guy we looked at, yeah. He could be tasty, and Hall will have his job cut out from with him. But hey, the players have put Newcastle in the position they are by getting 2 points out the last 12 and by not nailing the matches at Everton and against Brighton. So they've got to get us out of it. And all right, it's tough. Chelsea away and Arsenal at home, and in the middle of it, Chelsea at home in the League Cup. But we knew the fixture list, and that's why I was thumping on, and some people wondered why. Thumping on about how we must get 3 points against Everton and 3 points against Brighton. We got 1 point out of those 6, and we're going to pay for it now if we're not careful, because it'll be a monumental effort to get something against Chelsea and Arsenal. And it's possible, because we did it against Manchester City, and that was a wonderful effort and a very, very good result. But it was still just 1 point, Andrew, because we're not getting the points against the more vulnerable sides. But hey, life is what it is, and this is the Premier League, and we are. If we talk about us going for the Champions League, which I don't think we've got any chance of making this season, but that's the target, and quite right, and going for the minor European positions, then we've got to get something from games like the ones we're facing now.
Yeah, certainly so. But we said that last weekend. We said it before the Everton game.
Absolutely. It was still true then. It's true now.
No, it is. It is, because Chelsea are definitely one of those sides who are going to be up there with Newcastle United battling for European spot. All that remains to be done, John, is to ask you how Sunday is going to go. I'll start, and then I'm going to say Newcastle United win. I'm going to say they're going to pick up 3 points at Stamford Bridge. You're going to go for a 2-1 win. Isak and Gordon on the score sheet. And I'll see you next week, all happy and jolly.
Well, that would be absolutely fandabaldozy. But by the time you see me next week, we'll hopefully have completed the double against them, because we'll have had them up here in the League Cup. I'm not as optimistic as you as far as Sunday is concerned. Having seen them squander the chances they squandered against Everton and Brighton, I can't necessarily say he's winning. Although I take your point that he's actually got to come good at some time. He looks strangely lethargic, doesn't he? He looks strangely out of sorts and nowhere near the levels that he can be. And he'll come good again because he's quality. He's absolutely quality. Will it be this match? I would love to think so. But I'm swaying between whether we get a draw or we get an hour defeat at Chelsea. I'm not optimistic. What I am is furious that we didn't give ourselves a cushion by getting points against Everton and Brighton.
Well, I'm feeling optimistic about this one. So at least one of us is, and it's good to see that we've got different views. And let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen on Sunday. Do you agree with myself, or do you agree which way is he's that way? Do you agree with John that there might not be a happy trip down to Stamford Bridge? But fingers crossed for 3 points on Sunday, and it sets them up nicely for the League Cup clash on the Wednesday ahead of the visit of Arsenal on the Saturday, isn't it? I think, off the top of my head. Anyway, it's a busy week.
Saturday lunchtime, Andrew.
Yeah, it's a busy week for Newcastle, and fingers crossed they can turn some of those chances into goals. Thank you once again to NORD VPN for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you to John, as always, for providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. You know what to do. Give a thumbs up, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, leave us a rating and a review on your podcast provider. It's much appreciated. And for myself and John, we'll see you guys next week.